all I did was I walked up to him and I said, "Do you know what's wrong with your sailing classes?"
Oh no.
Pointing at him, And I said, "You don't have any women in it." His wife, Lauren, comes up and she goes, "Oh my goodness, this is that Emily girl, the genetically unemployable girl." It's like, oh my goodness. That one will live with me, I think, forever. But yeah, so
It's
her and
such
I
a
got to
great
know each
handle, though. I
other.
mean,
It really is, yes. That one's a hard one to let go of.
guys, I'm super excited to introduce you to Emily Leach. Emily is a good friend of mine. She's someone that I worked professionally with for a while. She and I have a great friendship that goes back a good number of years. And she is someone who is completely remaking her career, following her bliss, and making money from her passion. I can't wait for you guys to hear sort of this evolution of where her career's taken her and what she's doing, because she is inspiring so many people with what she is putting her time, energy, and attention towards. I love Emily because she is a no nonsense individual. She knows when she dives in with both feet, she is committed 100% to making whatever she has in front of her a success. And I love her drive. I love her commitment. But most importantly, I love her heart. She's a great rippler. She is an amazing individual. If you don't have any thoughts about following some, fantasy drive for your potential next career, maybe Emily will get you inspired to do just that. So I'm super excited for Emily to join the Ripple Effect podcast. So let's dive right in. So, Emily, welcome to the Ripple Effect podcast. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. And I am absolutely wonderful.
I think every time I've ever met you or visited with you, you're always that way. So I mean, that's not a surprise to me, but I am super excited for this conversation because I can't wait to hear about all these new adventures and what you're doing. But I was telling everybody in your intro that you are someone that I really, really respect and admire because you are someone that has had such a true commitment to making a difference. And nothing is far removed from the work that you're doing now, bringing this concept of sailing to the audience that you're talking to. So I normally start with an origin story, but I'm so anxious to just get into it. Tell me what you're
Okay.
doing today.
Today, because that could be different than yesterday and tomorrow. Um, I you know what? I'm showing people the world of sailing, I think is the best way to say it. So there's a few different ways that happens. Is I have been introduced to the opportunity to help people charter a boat. So a lot of people love to go. BVI's, British Virgin Islands, is a really popular spot for people. It's an easy to sail. There's a lot of reasons why. And so you go down there. I don't have a boat. Why would I go to the BVI's? And some people go, of course, and enjoy the islands. I understand that. But the beauty of, well, probably almost any island from a lot of people's perspective is to be able to see it from the water.
Yeah.
And that means you need to be on a boat. So you can either do that with a hired captain or learn to be, your own skipper and charter your own boat. So I can do that with people, and I can actually help people find boats all over the world. So that's pretty fun. I mean, what a fun business to be able to get people on an amazing romantic or adventure on the water. I am now a certified sailing instructor with
Wow.
NAVIC. So I can teach you how to sail if you don't know how already. And I am also doing, and you can hire me to skipper your boat if you wanted to. So that's pretty exciting to have gotten to that point. And
Oh
then
yeah.
last but definitely not least is I started putting together these women only, um, I call them instructional sailing retreats. And I love them because what I have seen, I've been sailing off and on since 2006. And
Okay.
not only did I see it at myself, but I watched it in so many different times with women where they come to a boat. I've literally sat on the dock and watched this happen many, many times. A woman comes onto a boat, an instructor's boat, with her husband, boyfriend, significant other, let's just say. And they almost always put her behind the helm first. And that freaks her out to begin with. If she's not familiar with boats, I should, not this isn't 100% across the board. And they basically will start the engine up and then tell her to leave dock. And of course, she's going to ram the side of that boat down the side of that dock, most likely because she's never done it before and she has no idea. She tries to drive it like a car.
Sure.
And you're either going to hit another boat or the side of the dock. And there's fenders all the way down it, so she's not done any damage. But of course, what happens next is either the instructor or the significant other relieves her of this burden and allows her to comfortably sit on one of the benches. And I've sat there on the dock and waited a couple of hours for them to come back. And I'll give you one guess where that woman is still sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just makes me sad. Now,
Yeah.
granted, there's at least some of the times where she didn't really want to do it anyway, and she might have, I don't know, turned the boat into the dock to not have to do it. That's on her. Yay, you for finding a way out of it, I guess. But that's not what I usually hear.
Yeah.
And so I've heard women come to me saying, I've been sailing with my husband for years. I've sailed, even in multiple different countries, and I still don't feel like I can sail. I can do what he tells me to do. I understand what all the pieces are, but I still don't necessarily know why I'm doing what and why I'm doing it then.
Yeah.
And that's huge. If something were to happen, let's just say there's a couple on a boat by themselves. If
Yeah.
something were to happen to him, she is kind of SOL.
Yeah.
Maybe she would figure it out. Maybe it'd begin to all coalesce and come together for her, but it's just a bad spot to put yourself in.
Sure. Sure.
And then other women are just I've taken classes and I didn't get it. There's a lot to learn in sailing. I hear people say sailing's just super easy. Just get on a boat and steer. It's like, well, then you're not using the sails and you have no wind. And when you do get a gust, I like to see what happens when that sail hits the water and you come popping back up, and
Yeah.
kinds of things. Not that it happens very often, but it can.
Sure.
So there's a lot to it, and I've learned so much about the different sailing organizations, the instructional sailing organizations. So when I just made the decision to become an instructor, I had done some classes through, let's just say, one of the most prominent sailing instruction organizations in the United States, and I took them twice. Actually, I went back, and it wasn't that I didn't have great instructors.
Yeah.
Both of them were men, which is fine, and they were wonderful. They helped me through some really cool stuff, but there's still not a way for any human to teach you completely how to sail in 3 to 5 days and all you got before you got on that boat was a couple of books to read, and you're
Yeah.
reading Greek. So it's like
Yeah.
going, one, almost no one on that book actually read on that boat, didn't read the books. I
Yeah.
did and put all kinds of notes and stuff on it, but it's reading Greek. If you don't know how to sail already, you're wondering what is luff? I mean, I'm just going to give you one example. So
Sure.
luff. There's the luff of a sail. Your sail could be luffing. I mean, we use so many words in different ways. So when you're on a boat and they're like going, how does the luff of that sail look? Does that mean it's flapping? I don't know. you know.
So,
So
so what does luff mean?
well, luff is a part of the sail. You have the head, the foot, the luff, the leech, the foot of the sail, and so it is a part of the sail that identifies, as well as if the sail is luffing, then it is actually moving. And it doesn't have the appropriate airfoil. It's
Okay,
it's
that
making
makes
that
sense.
flop flop flop
I
flop flop
I
noise.
was making sure it wasn't a medical condition that I was like,
No, it is not. And that is just like one, and then not to mention all of the lines that are on the boat.
oh
There's
yeah.
there's
Well,
sheets and lines and ropes and
it's super funny. So one of the things that we've done, we've created this community called the Pond, and we have this thing that we do as a special group within the Pond called WOW, which is Women Optimizing Women. And I happened to mention to one of our
wow.
members that I was going to be interviewing you on sailing, and the fact that you started there and you didn't even know this, that this person actually had at one point tried to become, certified
Interesting.
or at least get familiar, take
Right.
sailing lessons. And the fact that they love the fact that you are teaching other women to do it, because it was an experience. It wasn't a good experience. It was a
Yeah.
situation where the male instructor was very challenging. We'll just leave it at that. And
Okay.
they gave up, right? And so I said, "Oh, well, I everything I've ever known of you as an entrepreneur, I know you dive in with both feet and that you don't do anything half-ass. And
I'm
I know that
supposed to
it
be retired.
yeah, this is retirement. Yeah,
This
right.
is retirement.
But the
Sorry, go ahead.
reality is you always, no matter what it is from your prior life, it was whether it was developing, a design aesthetic for a website or marketing collateral or helping a freelancer figure out their business model, you dive in with both feet and you do it so well. And so when I was telling this individual, I said, if she's doing it, I can't wait to learn about it, but I can't wait to spread the word about it because I know that
Mhm.
you do a phenomenal job. And this is a perfect example of someone that was like, look, I really had interest and I lost all of the enthusiasm because the experience and learning I was made to feel, inadequate or, that I wasn't capable or she's like, quite honestly, I walked away feeling dumb,
Yeah,
and so stopped, right?
I did
And
too.
that's just so poor.
And you know what? Only part of that is the instructor's fault. Some of it could be his lack of emotional intelligence, the human, who cares what all that is? The other
Yep.
half of that, if not more, is probably the fact that he was teaching what I've learned to call, oh shoot, as soon as I went to say it, I forgot it. Attendance. Yeah, attendance certifications. I know when
Yeah.
I used to teach Microsoft certifications, we call them
Yeah,
paper
sure.
Microsoft engineers. So a lot of the companies out there that do training, they send you a book. And really what they're doing during that period of time is if they're a good instructor, they are doing their best to teach you how to sail. Again, it's hard to learn all the vernacular and
Yeah.
understand what it means and then go apply it in 3 to 5 days, which is what most sailing classes are. So here you are, you're learning the theory on the fly with usually 2 to 3 other people, maybe even 4 other people on the boat that also don't know the theory yet. And you're also learning practical.
Yeah.
And what that teacher is most likely attempting to do is their job is to make sure you pass. And so they're feeding you questions throughout the day, usually, so that when you take that test that evening, you will pass the test. And I've had one person tell me that isn't what Nautica does, but I'll get into that in just a second. I had one woman I had on the phone with me one day, and she was just freaking out because she was taking one of the classes, and I had met her on a woman sailing group, and I could just tell by her notes, so I sent her a quick message and said, "Hey, happy to just chat," and we did. We've chatted off and on for about a year now, and she said when she got through it all, she called me and she goes, "I did pass." And the gentleman had the nerve to tell me that you have passed. You can now go and charter a boat and sail it. She goes, I don't even hardly know what the boom is yet. I was like, you might want to learn what the boom is. That's
Yeah.
pretty important.
Yeah.
And she goes, but that's my point. They're
Wow.
telling me that I can go sail a boat and I can't go sail a boat. I don't even know if I would be competent crew to sail on a boat.
Wow.
And so that right there was the remaining impetus to
Yep.
create these retreats and make them, I donate my time on these women's retreats so we can keep the price affordable for people. And we spend a week in the British Virgin Islands, and we may start opening up to other places as time goes on. I sold out my first one in a matter of like 2 or 3 days, so that was
That's awesome.
amazing. Yeah. And so in June of this year, we'll be going to the British Virgin Islands with 4 other women. I take that back, 5 other women, and we're just going to spend a week sailing and touching in on this and touching in on that, learning some power skills for the boat, because that's the other thing that doesn't get taught much at all. And when you're learning to sail, is how to run the boat under power, because that's really where the accidents happen. It doesn't happen when you're sailing. It happens when you're trying to get out of the dock or get into the dock
Yeah.
because you're under power and you don't know how. So the big difference, and the reason I chose Nautic to do my certification, is because they've completely done it different. They have all of your theory is done online, and you can take as long as you want to do your theory, because we won't. I mean, I'll get on a boat with you and just kind of practice, but we won't do any practicals with you until you've passed your theory work. So that way, we know that you've gone through it. You can answer a whole bunch of questions on your own. You understood it enough to get there, and then you can work with there's me's all over the world,
Yeah.
and do what we call the practical. So now when you get on a boat, you have your theory in check. You know, you have your theory down. Let's get on a boat and let's see. And I just say, okay, take it. You ask questions. I'm going to watch and then see where their weaknesses, if you will, you know,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they didn't quite come together and coalesce. And let's work on those spots and build
That's
from there.
awesome. I mean, I love the approach that you take in sort of the, direction that you're taking this. I mean, I can see so many elements of what I knew you to do before that now tie to this. But what I can say is when you talk about this as your business in comparison to what I saw previously, there's this like lightness. Yeah, I mean, you just are popping. I mean, people that are going to hear this on the podcast, you're going to have to go check out the YouTube video because Emily is just positively glowing, right? Because you just love what you're doing. How I mean, I've known you a long time. I didn't know anything until you started posting that this was, a passion. I bought a boat. I'm doing this. I'm like, what the where
What the what?
what happened here? And so where did this come from and how did you get into it?
Well, back in 2006, I read a book. The book was written by a man you may have heard of before, Mr. Jimmy Buffett himself,
Yeah.
and it is Salty Piece of Land. And I have given that book to more people than I can count. I probably should own stock in that company if it was an option, and because it was the only book I had ever read from cover to cover,
Yep.
and I read it 4 times. I've never read a book more than once. On top of that, and when I got through with that book, our joke always was at the time was the book didn't cost me $24. It cost me about $24,000 because I bought a boat, I renovated a boat, and then I tried to teach myself to sail, and I kept it for about 4 years. It was down in Aransas Pass, Texas, so wherever you're at, it's down around Corpus Christi, Texas,
Yep.
on the coast. And I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which you're familiar with at the
Yep. Of
time.
course. Yeah.
And so I would drive all the way from Albuquerque. I'd get up, 4 o'clock in the morning and drive all the way to
That's a
Corpus
haul.
Christi.
Yeah.
It's a haul. And I would spend 1 to 2 weeks. I would stay on my boat. I would do some renovations and sail. And I got to teach my dad how to sail some. It was really cool. And it has a lot of memories. And that we had named it after my mother. And it was really a cool experience. And then I had a huge life. I don't know if trauma is really the right word, but it was pretty traumatic. Event happen,
Yep.
and I ended up sailing the boat and just took a break.
Yeah.
And back in 2019, I sailed a little bit with a few friends here, there, and yonder. But in 2019, some friends of my significant other said, "You know what? You guys should come charter with us." I was like, "I don't know what that is." And they're like, "Go and charter a boat. We go rent a boat." And it's like, "Oh, I never really even knew that was a
Okay.
thing."
Yep.
And so it took them a couple of years. So by 2019, we finally said yes. So we went to the British Virgin Islands. And
The
I,
rest is
like
history.
kind of the rest is history. The biggest thing that I think is important to say here is sailing wasn't easy for me. Learning to sail is not natural for me.
Okay.
Everything is hard. And it didn't help that I was literally terrified. And I don't say that lightly. Terrified. I have physically thrown my body on the floor of a boat, screaming, blood curdling screams when the boat healed. I mean, just healed a little bit. I mean, went from this to a little bit of this, and I'm like
Uh-huh.
going, oh my God, we're all going to die, just screaming. It was that traumatic for me. And to find some captains that were willing to work with me through that has changed everything. And
Ah,
so the name of my company is Sales and Grace because it took a whole lot of sale and it took a whole lot of grace from different people to get me here.
I love it. Well, like you said, you anticipated the last time that we talked about the future and where work was going, it was just right before COVID, right? And at that point you
Yeah.
were still trying to figure out, I mean, what you were doing at that point about the conference that you were putting on and the events that you were looking to do and maybe franchising, et cetera. But I could tell that the spark had just kind of, gone out
Yeah.
a little bit. It's like, I'm going to do it because that's what I got to do. But I really just need to get through the next couple years to retirement, and then then I'll figure out what that looks like, right? And
Yeah.
so to see you come, like full circle, but into something that you're truly committed and passionate, and you were great at what you did. I don't want to diminish that at all,
I know, I appreciate it.
but at the end of the day, you could just tell that you were ready for a shift in perspective, but somehow I knew at the time retirement wasn't it. I just didn't know at the time a sailboat was going to be in the future. But I mean,
Yeah,
I'm so damn proud of you for,
thank
what
you.
you're doing and how you're doing it. And that's why I was so excited that you wanted to come on the podcast, because I really want to just sing your praises from the rooftops, because
Wow,
you are
thanks.
talking about remaking, everything, right? I mean, a career path, a new life, approach, and you're changing lives. You're creating ripples for the women and the people that you're exposing to this way of doing things through sailing.
Yeah. And sailing has so much, adds so much to your life. I can't even, I will attempt to explain what it does for my significant other. He is a very, very high strung human being. Makes me look super relaxed, actually. And when the story that I try to tell people is when that man walks on the dock, he's still pretty high strung, or whatever, but the moment that his foot leaves the dock and lands on the boat, it just all starts to go down.
Ah,
And so to see that happen for him and that possibly it could happen for other people, I mean, it's definitely my happy place too. I do. Every time I walk on a boat, I like to be the first person that gets to get on the boat. And I always tell her hello. I always give her praises for being here. And I always tell her that, you know what, the souls, the humans that are going to be on this boat are very important to me. And I hope that you will feel the same for them and keep us all safe. I
yeah.
kind of say this sort of prayer, if you will,
Yeah,
to, well, I mean, to the universe and let her know that she's a big part of what is about to happen for these humans.
I
And
love that.
it's just kind of turned into my thing. I didn't make it a thing. It just became that.
Well, and that's sometimes the best way for things to happen, right? For it to just evolve, and instead of trying to force it or make it happen. The fact that I'm not kidding. I mean, I see you on screen, and you just are exploding with, this is your thing. I love it. I'm so awesome. I'm just awestruck by it. So it's
Thanks.
great that you found it. It's great that this is a direction that you're headed. And I love the sales and grace and the tie into that. I have to ask a really dumb sailing question, because when you go to the British Virgin Islands, does somebody have to stay awake the whole time while you're sailing?
No, no. I mean, if you're going from, no, that's called a passage. If you're
Okay.
going somewhere long enough that you have to stay up overnight, those are those are tough. They can be fun though, to have those few
Sure.
hours all to yourself and the beautiful sky above you. But that's in fact, on a charter boat, you're not even allowed to. You
Okay.
have to. You can't get back on the boat. You can't. The boat can't leave anchorage prior to I think 5 a.m. and it has to be on anchor again or on a mooring ball by nighttime.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
good to know. How long does it take to get to the British Virgin Islands, and where do you sail out of in order to get there? Are you leaving from the Gulf Coast, or are you actually,
I
you
just
know,
fly over. Yeah, we just
okay.
charter boats. We go over there and charter a boat. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so American Airlines last year just started a direct flight out of Miami to it's called Beef Island, and it's the island that the airport is on in
Wow.
BBI. And that airport, if you're going out and looking it up, it's EIS is the letters you're looking for that airport. And so yeah, and then there's quite a few different yacht charter companies along the main island of Tortola. And so that's you will leave off of Tortola. That's where all the charter companies are. And
Okay.
then from there you would go and um, if you need to charter something, let me know. If you want help putting together an itinerary, which is what we call it, which places you're going to go to. Happy to help. I mean, I just love to talk about sailing. So
Yeah.
if you reach out and say, "Hey, I just want to chat," let's go. Let's chat. I don't,
Well, I could see so many practical applications here, right? Syncing up with you, maybe doing some leadership retreat kind of work
yes.
down in a magical place, learning a skill, maybe you don't ever intend to be, licensed. I assume that's, what you're really striving for, certification, right? And but you want to learn something that you can apply what you're learning and the practicalities of it, and then how you can take that back into your own life or your own work. And
Right.
I know for a fact, having, worked with you and seen you in action, you're the perfect person to do that with, because you're someone who is really clued in on what it takes to really take a lot of life experience and leverage that into, here's how you can bring it
Mhm.
back into either finding your balance, finding your purpose, defining your mission statement, bringing this, this same kind of cadence back into your leadership style. I could see so many various applications there that, would be really benefited from those people coming to you to do that.
Yeah, and to answer your question real quick about, or your statement, I should say, about my end goal is certification. It really is not.
Okay.
I've had people call and say, which certification do I need to charter a sailboat? And the honest answer is you don't need any certifications to
Oh,
charter a
wow.
sailboat.
Okay.
The only place you need a license to sail is the Mediterranean and the Seychelles.
Oh,
Otherwise, what charter companies want to see is your time behind the wheel. We call it master of vessel, and what size vessels you have sailed. Now, it helps to have certifications behind your belt too, so they know you
sure.
have a much better rounded understanding and education. But you don't have to have a certification.
Oh, wow. I did
So
not
just
know that.
just
But you would
FYI.
definitely not recommend not having experience in doing that, right?
Well, you can't. I mean, they just won't
Yeah.
charter you a
Yeah.
boat.
They won't
So
charter you a boat. Yeah.
there's
So you
that.
have to
And
have
so,
some master of vessels. So you have to be able to show those hours in some capacity or that past experience.
right. So for instance, Nauticad, I just made a video on this last night. Nauticad has a free, it's an e-logbook. So you can go and
Oh,
I'll
okay.
give you the URL. You can go over there and sign up. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to do anything, but you can use their logbook. And so they've got some really cool tools in there. So for instance, you set your account up. And if you were to charter through Nautic Ed, you don't have to charter through me, but through the company itself, is then when you go on that trip, it automatically logs your time. You'll need to go in and tell it if you were guest or master of vessel. And then you can also use an app called Sail Ties, which is also free. You don't have to be a Nautic Ed person to use it, but if you are and you connect your two accounts, every time you sail and you use, so what Sail Ties does is you set it, excuse me, you tell it to start tracking when you leave dock or whenever you want to. And then the whole time you're out sailing, it's tracking all of that. And then it syncs that up to your logbook. So you can really
Oh, got it.
simplify
Oh, yeah.
logging your time. And then they also already have a pre-structured sailing resume. And that's what we use when you go to charter a boat. They're going to ask for your sailing resume. And they want to see, like I said, what size boats you've been on, if they've been catamarans, if they've been single hull, which is a monohull, if you're a master of vessel, if you're a crew, all the things. They even like to see weather stuff, and all that could
Sure.
be put into the logbook if you wanted to.
That's
So
that's really
great,
amazing.
great tool. Yeah, and it's a great place to start.
Yeah, and we'll put a link if you'll send that to me. We'll put a link
I
out
will.
on the
Yeah,
show notes for that for sure, because I do know several people are super intrigued when this episode drops, and so hopefully we
okay.
can send some business your way for sure, which would be great. But at the same time, be able to get them exposure to the tools to dive in
Yeah.
like you have. So let me ask you a question that's really, on the top of my mind is, how has this experience and this shift in your entrepreneurial venture, tell me about that. How did it come about, and why did you do it? And what are you most taking from it now?
See if I can get all of that in one. So after I found a new home for the conference and all of that kind of got put to bed, if you will, that took about a year just to kind of get all that settled and make that transition
Yep.
and for its new owners. Then we sat down, Bobby and I, my other half, and he said, "You know what? You have been stressed out for 7 years and you're not even the same person anymore. And I love you, but will you please just not work for a year?
Oh,
I
wow.
will
Okay.
I will take care
That's a
of
gift.
everything.
Yep.
You just need to go heal." And he was right. I was beyond burnt out about, 4 years in. And so I just, like you said, I just kind of kept going because I have to do this and I could get excited about it and then it would just burn me out again. I'd get excited, I'd burn me out. Learned a lot there, needless to say. So during that year, I was actually coming up right on the end of that year, like the last month of that year. I took that time and I did a bunch of woodworking. You probably saw some of the stuff that I
Yep.
posted up. I enjoy doing that. I got a woodworking shop in my garage and I helped people with gardening. I love to garden. I actually really enjoy picking weeds. Don't ask me to come pick yours, but I like to pick my own weeds. Um, I had a couple of neighbors like going, "Oh, come take care of ours." Like, sure. I was like, "Oh, this isn't fun at all."
Yeah.
And I did a lot of bicycling. I got to the gym. I really started doing things just for me, and which isn't something I'm good at doing. And then towards the end of it, I got reconnected with Grant Hedefin, which is the founder and owner of Nautic Ed. He lives right here in Austin, him and his wife, and they did a happy hour here in Austin. And I was like, you know what? I haven't seen that dude in forever. I'm going to go. And that was May a year ago. And I got to meet him and I walked up to him and I just started going back through and looking at his classes and stuff. And um, he walks up to me and is like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in forever. And all I did was I walked up to him and I said, do you know what's wrong with your sailing classes?
Oh no.
Pointing at him, and he goes, no. And he's Kiwi. So, I can't say it the way he says it because he has that really cool accent that I don't have. And I said, you don't have any women in it. He goes, oh, well, that's true. And it does need to get fixed. I said, yeah, let's fix that. And then I hugged him and we started chatting. his wife, Lauren, comes up and she goes, oh my goodness, this is that Emily girl, the genetically unemployable girl. It's like, oh my goodness, that one will live with me, I think, forever. But yeah, so
It's
her and
such
I
a
got to
great
know each
handle,
other.
though. I mean,
It really is, yes. That one's a hard one to let go of. But anyway, so we chatted quite a bit. We got together like literally the next week. Grant called up and said, "I was serious. Let's get together and work on this." And so I went over and spent an afternoon, and Lauren was sitting there talking about she's the one that handles the charter side of that business. And she was talking about she's also a full-time lawyer. So it
oh
was,
wow,
yeah, she was like, I'm a little overwhelmed. And Grant just kind of looked at me and said, Yep, she's a little overwhelmed. If you know anybody that might be interested in doing something like this part-time, let us know. I was like going, all right, I'll give it some thought. I don't know. I didn't think a whole lot of it. And then a few days later, maybe that would be a fun retirement gig. And so I
yeah.
called Lauren and said, "Were you serious?" And she's like, "Yeah, let me have you talk to Grant." Grant called me back. I don't even think it was 2.5 minutes. I didn't even go get my glass of water. And he was like, "You're a really good fit because I've chartered before. I know how to sail. I started taking the classes already." He knew I wanted to be an instructor. And I mean, so it just kind of all came together. And he's like, "Well, let's give it a shot."
That's
And here I
awesome.
am.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic. And so that parlays into Sales and Grace, which is what you're doing with these trips, right? So explain
it
just a
is.
little bit more for our audience, just what that actually looks like, or what it could look like if they were
Okay.
curious about partaking.
Yeah, so I'm in the process right now of looking at my next date. So our upcoming dates are June 14th through the 21st. It's like, what's 14 plus 7? 21. And and it's full. Like I said, it looks like an Oceanus, no, a 52-foot sailboat. It'll either be Oceanus or a DeFore usually is a good sized boat. It allows me to put, four women on there comfortably plus myself. And we'll take off and just get a feel for what everybody's got in their pocket. We've already started doing what we call crew meetings. We had our first one yesterday. So you'll have 3 or 4 crew meetings in place so that we can kind of get to know each other. People get to see each other's faces. And we start using some of the apps that everybody in the sailing community uses, WhatsApp. And I get them connected with Nautic Ed because I can give, like anybody here, I can give anybody 2 free classes
Oh
and
wow.
they're really awesome classes in that the first class, and I'm squirreling just a little bit, but one of the classes is what we call rules of the road. It should be rules of the water, but it's not. Rules of the road. And the other one is basic sail trim. And those are 2 fantastic classes to have under your belt. So everybody on the boat is required to have those 2 classes done before we get on the boat. And from there, we will just make an itinerary together. We will learn how to provision together. We will put together our provision list. We'll put in our pre-order for our provisions, and they've already been given all the information on the boat, so they can go and look at it and kind of pick their cabin. Even people tend
Oh,
to like going, I
wow.
like this one, I like this one, and just walk them through that process. And then when we get there to charter, everybody that wants to will come into the charter office and experience that if they want to. And we'll go through our what they call their briefing. A gentleman, usually a gentleman, I'm sorry, could be a woman, will come in from the charter company and take you through all of the systems of the boat and your dinghy. So your dinghy is the small boat that you drag behind you, that
Yeah.
takes you on shore and back. And so that way, everybody on board will know how to turn the stuff off, how to turn it on, how to clear out the strainer so that the water that's coming out of the ocean and going into the engine is clean, and all of those pieces. And
Wow.
so it's not just me that knows them. Everybody on the boat is supposed to be at least introduced to them.
That's
And then
oh,
from
that's
there,
awesome. So
each day,
even if they're down there just to they just want to get a taste, they're going to get more than a taste because this is, it's an operation in order to make this work.
it is. I mean, I'm not going to force them to do anything they don't want to do, but they are kind of agreeing to come on board to be crew. So you can be as much crew as you want, right? So we will all pitch in to finish buying the groceries. We'll all pitch in to put it away. We'll all pitch in to clean and to cook for each other. And every time we go into shore, someone will get the opportunity to volunteer to run the dinghy, so they get dinghy experience.
Yeah.
And somebody has to be behind the helm all the time. Somebody has to be, working on sails and putting us on mooring balls and all the things that needs to happen. So wherever you're at and you want to learn, you bring that to the table, and those are the things we're going to do our best to work on.
Ah, that's awesome. I love that. That sounds like a really amazing experience. And there's probably no one better than you to do it because you are such a patient and kind individual. You're great to be around anyway, just
Oh,
energetically.
great.
But I mean, the fact that you're passionate about this and this approach and helping people, no matter where they're at, meeting them where they're at to help them get, that experience or get, that
Yeah.
next level of understanding of what it would take, to continue to gain that experience in learning how to sail and how to eventually do it on their own, I think is fantastic.
Thank
So,
you.
what is what's the most surprising thing that you've learned through this shift uh, in your direction?
Wow. The first thing that came to mind was that I can actually do this, that I can sail well enough and to be approved and considered an instructor was pretty amazing to me. Yeah, I think it still is. I still kind of sit with that sometimes and like, wow,
I
me.
love that. I love that. And it and you're still being an entrepreneur just in a different way, right?
Yeah, I think I've taken quite a few steps back. I don't have a need or an interest to grow this into this huge enterprise, or I really want to be able to help people. And some people are like, well, you're retired, so why are you charging, kind of thing. I said, well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is
Yeah.
when people pay for things, they give it more of themselves. Two, I do now own a boat, and it helps pay for, the expenses of the company, the expenses of the boat,
Yeah.
and me going places, and it allows me to be able to donate that time, and all the other expenses get taken care of, and not
Yeah.
have to worry about, I don't know, just putting those expenses on my other half. That doesn't feel fair to me.
Yeah. Well, and you've actually been able to carve out a niche, right? There is a unique
Yeah,
niche here, and it shouldn't be for free, right? I mean, you're not a
yeah.
charity, you're not a 501c, right? So at the
I'm not. I'm not. I've done one of those, and nothing.
how this is proven to be a venture
Oh,
that should be invested in because there's a lot of costs, there's a lot of expense,
there
plus your
is.
time, just the effort that you've put in to kind of formulate this thing. I think is it's so powerful. I mean, I think it's so amazing that you're doing it.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that coming from you.
Well, I'm so very, very proud. And before I let you go, we always finish up these interviews with a few ripple connection questions.
Okay.
You know these questions, not necessarily the ones I'm going to ask you, but
Okay.
I'm all about the ripple because it gives people a little bit
Yeah.
more insight as to who my guest is. So I want to ask 7-year-old Emily, what did she want to do what did she want to be when she grew up?
A petroleum engineer.
At the age of 7. Okay, you got to tell us the story about that.
Well, my father was in oil
Okay.
business and worked for Arco Oil and Gas before it was BP. And so the way that I got to spend time with my dad was on Saturday mornings at 4:30 in the morning. He would come scoop me up out of bed, put me in the back of his car because it was about a 90-minute drive, 60 to 90-minute drive one way to where he had to work, and then wake me up, about 6:30 when we got closer. And I would get my clothes on and stuff, and we'd stop at some little dive breakfast spot where all the roustabouts were, and he'd take me in and grab me a little breakfast, and I'd get to meet all the guys, and we would all meet up at the lease, and I would spend the day watching my dad work on um, do whatever he did,
Yeah.
and hang out with the guys, and I could. One of the games he used to play with me is we would walk into the pump house for one of the oil wells, and the first thing he would do is he'd open the entire electrical panel, and I would have to tell him what everything in the electric panel did. And I don't know why. And then he would hand me the plumb bob, the mechanism that you put into each tank so you can measure the levels of all the
Yeah.
tanks. And I did that. And I changed out all the charts, and, he was just everything to me. And
Oh,
I wanted to be the one thing he never got to be, which was a petroleum engineer.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great answer, and what a great experience that you still draw from. When you're not sailing, and I think we got a little bit of an insight into this, but how do you like to spend your free time when you're not hanging with Bobby as well? We'll throw that
Well,
out
we
there
both
just to
work from
throw a
home
little
now.
wrinkle into that.
Yes. Okay, so I can't be with Bobby. I can't be sailing.
Take away gardening and
I
woodworking too. What
start it's yeah, okay. Man, I need to get back on my mountain bike. Unfortunately, I have fallen back into my normal way, and I spend a lot of time creating content, figuring out, looking for things, looking up answers for clients. When people charter, that doesn't necessarily mean that they know the area, or
Sure.
the beauty of working with a charter agent like myself is that I'm the one that gets all your questions answered. If you want to know if there's a coffee pot on that, I had a person reach out the other day and say, my wife would like to know if there is a Keurig on the boat. And my answer was, I feel confident in saying no, but let me make sure that's not an option because you never know. I
You never
mean,
know. Yeah.
every charter company is trying to find that little inch here, there, and yonder. So maybe they could have upgraded for 25 bucks or something and
Yeah.
got a Keurig on there, but sure enough, they're not there yet. So you'll need to bring your own if
Yeah.
you're going to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Does the boat have an inverter? Does it have a generator? Does all these different questions? And then of course I really enjoy helping people create their itinerary. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that's exactly what they're going to get to do. Weather is always the culprit of why we don't get to do the
Yeah.
perfect plan, but sometimes it takes you to the other perfect plan.
Yeah. Of course. So, for someone that's maybe never sailed, how would you describe sailing through Emily's eyes?
Wow, I was actually asked this question just the other day,
Oh,
and
dang it. I thought it
um,
was going to be an original
no, I got interviewed by women who sail actually, and they kind of they asked that question, and it's to me, it's so tough just because some people get really seasick. So for me, I don't get seasick. So
Yeah.
it's absolute bliss unless I'm healing. And then, I still have a little little pause when we heal. But I've gotten so much better. But people that get seasick, it's really not a pleasant experience for them.
Sure.
So if you get seasick, let's chat about that. There's a lot of different options now. It is it is an escape. It is it is this magical moment of watching the hull of your boat, the wind and your sails propel you forward. without an engine, in complete silence. The only noise you hear, well, unless there's other boats around with whatever, is the sound of that water just ripping along the side of your hull and the wind just going like through through that sail. It is just amazing.
That that
I
sounds
don't know that there's
magical.
anything else like it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great answer. What has sailing taught Emily about Emily?
I'm stronger than I thought I was. Uh, even even though it's hard, hard isn't a reason to not do something.
Oh,
In fact, it could be the reason why you should do it.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, Given that you've made this sort of change to your career path, you thought you were retiring, but really at the end of the day, you just took on a different role of an entrepreneur. For someone who's maybe, in our age bracket who might be thinking like, I really there's something out there. I don't know what that is, but what advice would you give them if they're maybe not ready to completely hang it up and they're still feel like they got something left in the tank? What advice would you give that person?
Find a way to explore. And if I hadn't had Bobby, this would have been a much more difficult route to take,
Yeah.
or path to take. And I would have had to do things side by side somehow. And so find those moments, find the gaps between work and your own play. You still need to play to keep yourself just motivated, and set that time aside. And I, I I use the word explore because you may not know what it is yet. If you know exactly what it is, then I would give you the same advice that I give the kids that I used to get to talk to at college when I would be brought in to talk about freelancing. Is go ahead and get out there and start meeting people that could be your potential clients someday,
Yep.
and begin to understand what is needed of you. What would they want from you? What would they need to see? Is there, we talked about licensure and certifications, and if there's, going back to the freelance space, is do they want to see some sort of portfolio? And if they do, start building that portfolio now. Don't wait until the day you wake up and say, I'm going to start my company today. I need a portfolio, a business, blah, 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 blah. Start doing that stuff now. And if you don't use it, you don't use it, but you didn't waste anything.
Yeah.
And I also say play with it because not everything is what you think it is. The example that I like to use is, how many people do you know that have said, I would be completely happy if I could go and buy a house on the beach and live there forever. I would tell every time I've heard that, having been raised basically on an island, down in the Corpus Christi area, and go, it might be expensive, but go Airbnb a house on the beach for no less than 90 days.
Yeah.
So because you will get tired of sweeping sand. There is a reason that we don't have vacuum cleaners on the beach, because that's all you would have in there is a big old bucket of sand all the time. You just get tired of feeling gritty. You get tired of feeling that what is that? Um, I don't even know what that thing is. It's all over everything when you get to the beach.
Yep.
And it's the same when I'm on a boat. I love when I get on a boat, and I spend a week on the boat. And by the time that week is over, I am so ready
Ready.
to come home and just embrace all my stuff,
Yeah.
you know? And everybody on the boat is the same. They're like going, I just want to take a real shower. Boats have a shower, right? They have heads. That's what we call toilets or bathrooms. But they're just not the same. One, you have to do everything in your power to conserve water. So it does take you about, or it takes me about 3 or 4 days when I get home to, when you're at home, you put toothpaste on your toothbrush and you start the water and you put it on there and you brush and you do your thing,
Yep.
and the water's been running the whole time. If you do that on a boat, someone is going to knock your head off because you just wasted gallons of precious water that we
Yeah.
now have to go pay for to, refinish. So anyway, it's, yeah, yeah, all of the
I
things.
love it. I love it. So, you know, what is your word for this year? What would you, if you had to pick a word, what would it be?
Simplicity.
I love that. Why did you pick
I have
that
not
one?
achieved it.
You've achieved it. You have achieved it. I love it.
I
Oh,
have
you
not
haven't.
achieved it.
Okay.
Um, because I have a tendency to keep taking on and taking on and taking on. I know that's a
You?
huge
I
surprise
mean,
to you. I know
I don't see
exactly.
that.
I know exactly. And Bobby's like going, all right, there you go again.
Yeah.
So, so simplicity to me means teaching myself how to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Teaching myself to have a list of questions, and they're still in progress of what those questions are going to be. Do I need to do this? Why am I, who am I doing this for? Am I doing it because I just like to help people.
Yeah.
And when people come up with ideas, they sound interesting, exciting, and new, and let's go do that. The squirrel pops his head out and goes, "Come on,
That's
and Emily comes, yes. I look like my dog going after the squirrel. And then the squirrel runs away and goes, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm like going, but I did all this work. So maybe I'm
Simplicity. I
just a
love
squirrel.
that. Yeah. I love that. Last two questions. What does the ripple effect
Okay.
mean to you?
It means that the people you touch, the things that you do that touch the people that they touch. Um, and there's also an energy that I feel like you put out in the world. There's a woman that I just man, I just love her dearly. I've only known her for 2 or 3 months, but her and I both agree. It feels like I've known you forever.
Uh,
We call her Captain Emmy. Her name is Emmy, and her nickname is Captain One Tack. There's a whole story behind that, but that's a different story. And she is a rocket engineer
wow.
that graduated, got a job, did the things, got burnout, had a roommate, invited her out to take a year off and go sail. And I hope I have the story correctly. And at the end of the year, he went back to work and she didn't stop. She has been sailing full time for 12 years, I think it is.
Wow.
And she is a U.S. Coast Guard captain and has sailed maybe not all over the world, but mostly over the world. And I got the opportunity now to sail with her the last couple of times, and she is the calmest and most genuine human I've ever met. Maybe I mean just being around her can pull your entire because I'm an anxious person, and so
You?
so I know. So when I being around her,
Yeah.
I feel like I could go and watching her instruct. Her and I got the opportunity to instruct a couple together, and
Oh,
it was it was like watching magic.
yeah. Oh,
She so she is. My joke is, I want to grow up and be like Emmy,
that's
but
awesome.
it really isn't a joke. It's just she actually really has a very simple life. People ask her, "Where do you live?" And she's like going, "Wherever that boat is today."
Uh, oh, wow.
So
I mean, that sounds like a pretty powerful ripple of connection you've got there, and,
it
a great
is.
person to be a friend with for sure. And I'd have
Yeah.
to say she's pretty lucky to have a friend like you too. So, you're pretty special yourself.
Thank you.
Last thing, what ripple can I
Okay.
create for you?
Well, you've already said you were interested in doing it. Let the world know that I'm not the only one out there. That there are women out there teaching women to sail, and don't stop. And I'm not trying to be a man basher, but just because some dude made you feel bad,
Yep.
I get it. I hear you and I feel you. But you still have the opportunity to
Yep.
go find a woman that can sail as good as any man out there and is willing to teach you to sail.
Well, I highly encourage them to reach out to you because I think they would have the perfect instructor with you because you are
Oh, I
a
appreciate that.
very, very calming presence, despite what you say, right? You are you are somebody who really I've always long since admired that about you. You are someone that really knows when you dive into something, you know the purpose. You are 100% committed to helping people navigate those waters. I mean, ironic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're in what you're doing now, but really, at the end of the day, you just have a real good way of helping people find who they really were meant to be, and that's a special skill and a talent that I know is serving you well in what you do. So
Thank you.
I will happily sing your praises to anyone who will listen to come check out what you're doing and
Okay.
find some time to get on the boat with you, because I think it would be a magical experience.
That would be fantastic. I
All
would be
right.
honored.
Well, Emily, what's the best way for people to follow you or to learn more about how to get engaged with, learning more about sailing through you?
The easiest way is the website, www.salesandgrace.com.
Perfect.
You
And do
can
you,
find my social on there. You
yep.
can get access to free classes and all the information that I could give you here. You can get it all right there.
Excellent. Well, we will be sure to put that link in the show notes as well. And I
Thank
just
you.
want to thank everybody for joining us for this great episode. I highly encourage, if you're listening to this on audio only, come to my YouTube channel so you can see Emily's amazing smile that is just beaming when she talks about sailing. You'll be like, okay, I want to go. I want to go. I promise. Cause
Let's go.
I feel exactly the same way right now. So I encourage you to do that. Be sure to follow her on the links as well. And, you guys go out there, make a difference in the world and create some positive ripples. And as always, Emily, ripple on.